Alright guys, in this video we are going to look at how to solve a quadratic equation by factoring. Now when we have to do this, we need to look and notice that our a value is something other than 1. And whenever we have an a value that is other than 1, what we have to do is multiply our a value and our c value. When we multiply a and c together, that gives us 4. Then we have to ask ourselves the question, what two numbers could we multiply to get positive 4, but when we add them together we get negative 4? So when you think about that, you should come up with negative 2 and negative 2. Because when you multiply negative 2 and negative 2, you get positive 4. When you add negative 2 to negative 2, you get negative 4. So what we can do at this point is rewrite the equation as 2x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 2 equals 0. The reason why we can do this is because we're not actually changing the value of the quadratic, we're just rewriting that negative 4x as two terms, but the values are the same. Once you do that, you can group the first two terms and you can group the second two terms. And what you'll want to do is you want to factor out whatever you can from each. So if I look at the first group, I notice that I can factor out 2x. When I factor out 2x, that's going to leave me with x minus 1. Now, when we look to factor the second set of parentheses, what we have to do is make sure that after we factor a value out, whatever's left over in the parentheses has got to equal whatever we had left over in the first parentheses. Now, we could either factor out 2 or negative 2, but in order to get a parentheses with x minus 1 in it, we're going to need to factor out negative 2. When we factor out negative 2, that leaves us with x minus 1. Notice here that we did come up with the same values in the parentheses. Now what we are going to do is we are going to take the two values that are outside the parentheses and group them together into one set of parentheses. And then whatever was equal in the other parentheses becomes our other part. Now the factoring is complete. In order to solve the equation though, we remember that this is still set to 0. Now we have two sets of expressions that we can set equal to 0. 2x minus 2 is equal to 0, and then x minus 1 is equal to 0. When we solve this out, we notice that we get 2x is equal to 2, which means that x is equal to 1. Over here, when we add 1 to both sides, we find out that once again x is equal to 1. So really, we only came up with one solution, and that is 1. By this point, we should all know that whenever you come up with one solution, that means the vertex of this parabola lies on the x-axis. Next, we will start to look at how to complete the square. Alright guys, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the same quadratic equation and we are going to solve for x by completing the square. Now if you notice, the a value in this quadratic is 2, so when we complete the square, what we want to do is to make sure the a value equals 1. So in order to get rid of this 2, we are going to divide by 2. And remember, whatever you do to one term in an equation, you have to do to all of them. So we're going to divide everything else by 2 as well. When we do that, it gives us x squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. Now what we'll want to do is we'll want to take our c value and take it to the other side of the equation. This is going to give us x squared minus 2x equals negative 1. And what you want to do when completing the square is you want to leave yourself a little space, because what we're going to do is we're going to add in b over 2 squared. So when we do that, we see that our b value is negative 2, so that would be negative 2 over 2 squared. And remember, whatever you do to the left, you have to do to the right. So we're going to add in negative 2 over 2 squared over here as well. So when we work this out, we know that negative 2 divided by 2 is going to give you negative 1. So that gives us x squared minus 2x plus negative 1 squared equals negative 1 plus, since we know negative 1 is inside the parentheses, negative 1 squared would be positive 1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a binomial on the left side by taking this x and by taking whatever's in the parentheses, negative 1, and squaring it. Now if you were to FOIL this out, you would get negative 2x as your x values. Now over here we know that negative 1 plus 1 is equal to 0. So we need to get rid of that exponent of 2, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the root of both sides. That leaves us with x minus 1 on the left, and we know the square root of 0 is just 0. Now we'll add 1 to both sides, and that gives us our answer, x is equal to 1. So we end up getting the same answer just as we did when we factored this quadratic. Alright guys, the last thing we're going to do in this video is we're going to solve this quadratic by using the quadratic formula. If you remember, the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now all you have to do is you need to take your values inside your quadratic and plug them into their corresponding letters. So first we would get minus negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 2 over 2 times 2. Once we get that, we just need to simplify. 2 negatives make a positive. Negative 4 squared is positive 16. Negative 4 times 2 times 2 gives you negative 16. And then 2 times 2 is equal to 4. Now, we simplify this out a little bit more. We get 4 plus or minus the square root, and we notice that our discriminant is 16 minus 16, which equals 0. And we already know that when your discriminant is equal to 0, that means you're going to come up with one real solution. So the bottom we still have 4. Since the square root of 0 is just 0 and it does not affect your problem when you add or subtract 0, we could just cross this out. So that just leaves us with 4 divided by 4, and 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. So our solution is the same as if we factored it or if we completed the square. We have one real solution, and that is 1.